Hey friends, I hope the morning's treating you well. Hope you got your coffee. I do not have any coffee right now. I'll get some after this, but I'm in a park on the east side of Indianapolis, and I just got back from touring for a couple weeks with Todd Snider. It was a really, really good time. I had a freaking blast, and I want to tell you guys about it. And my buddy Todd Fox came along with me. And it was fun to get to travel with him. He's probably the person I've traveled with more in my life than anybody. But I want to say a few things about Todd Snider. This is going to get confusing when we're dealing with multiple Todds. It got confusing on the tour. I want to say, and if Todd Snider, if you're watching this, you might want to turn it off. It's going to get embarrassing for you, you know. But I don't know. Todd Snider has this ability. I don't know if you've never seen him live, you really need to. He's really, really great live. He's one of the best storytellers there are out there right now, and there's just like a nice, upbeat, warm, fun feeling about him. It's a very hard thing to describe, but it's a very real thing. I've said for years that one of the best things that we can do for each other, one of the nicest things we can do is to make each other laugh and smile, and it just takes the edge off in so many ways. And Todd's whole show, you know, his thing, it just puts a smile. The crowd really, they're like smiling the whole time, lots of laugh lines. And I've always loved that about comedians, where they could just like ease everything, like just take the weight off of each of us. And right now, you know, after the last couple of years, we could all stand some of that. And you could see where people were really excited to get to see Todd live and get to experience that thing once again. And so that's one thing I want to say. I just think that's a gift, and not a lot of people have it. I mean, there aren't very many people at all that really have that, especially in music. There are comedians that have a bit of that, but sometimes it's, I don't know, it's mean-spirited. You know, like with Todd, the joke is always on him. He's the punchline. He's the one that's kind of, you know, taking the, so it has there's a kindness about it, and it's fun, but I don't want to make too much of that. But if you guys have if you don't really know who Todd is, you know, you should look up a couple songs or something on YouTube. He does a Saturday or a Sunday live stream, or at least he did throughout most of the pandemic. That's very good. When Jerry Jeff Walker passed away, he played a couple hours of Jerry Jeff Walker songs, just him, and it was really great. He was friends with Jerry Jeff, and that's something I would look up. There's also, I will try to remember to put this at the end of the video. I will try very hard to remember this. But quite a few years ago now, Todd Snider came over to my house in East Nashville late at night on like a Tuesday. He's like called up, he's like, "Otis, I want to be on your show." And I had my podcast, the audio podcast. And I'm like, "Great, man, when would you like to do that?" And he's like, "I want to do that right now." And I'm just kind of like, "Todd, you know, it's kind of late, it's Tuesday." And he's like, "I want to do it right now, man." And I'm like, "All right." So he shows up, and he'd been tripping on mushrooms, hadn't slept for a couple days. And he sat down on my couch and he just started talking about how much he loved John Prine. And there was some strangeness as we started, but then it just got real. And you could just see and hear the love of John Prine, his friend, John Prine. And John Prine was still alive at the time when he came over, and I made that into a video. And when I first started this channel, that was one of them I uploaded. I'll try to find some way to remember to put this at the end. Maybe I can put it like right there, right now. I got a feeling that won't work, and I won't remember how to do that. So if nothing appeared right there, ignore that whole thing. But now he asked me to go and do some tour dates with him, and I was really happy to get to do it, man. Really happy. Like, the people I met were just freaking nice. There were people that had never heard of me. There were a lot of people who liked my music for a while, and there were some of you who've watched this channel. and came out. And thank you guys very much. It was very cool to get to see you in person. And but Kevin Gordon was supposed to take over some dates when I was done, and Kevin got COVID, and so he couldn't come out to the dates. And Todd asked me if I would go ahead and play some more, you know, continue on for another week. And I'm like, hell yeah. So we stayed out on the road for another week doing dates, and then Kevin is better and he's out on the road with Todd right now. And but it was really, really great. Some things that come to mind that were memorable. Like, we did a lot of roadside stuff. Went to Frederick Douglass's grave in Rochester, New York. And in the same graveyard, we visited Susan B. Anthony's grave in Rochester. I think it's Mount Hope Cemetery. Here comes a loud car. There's always a loud car. I think it was Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. And I'm gonna be honest, man. I mean, it's a beautiful cemetery, like one of the prettier ones that I'd been in. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd never been to Rochester before. And everything that I'd heard about Rochester, people kind of like joked about it, you know, like you joke about Cleveland or something like that. And I think people are crazy. The parts of Rochester we saw were absolutely beautiful. I mean, beautiful. We came in, oh boy, we came in to the venue, I believe it was on East Avenue, and I looked it up online, and there's not really a good accounting of this. I thought that there might be some website that shows this, but there's this row of mansions that go on for a half mile, maybe a mile, that were just unbelievably beautiful. We're talking about 1870s, 1890s, somewhere in there, mansions. And I noticed this about the Northeast, when the houses, like in the Midwest, we have, you know, I love old houses. I'm really kind of obsessed with old houses. And when you see an old Victorian, it's of a certain size and it's pretty big, but in the Northeast, those houses are freaking huge. I mean, huge. These mansions look like they were 8,000 square feet, you know, 10,000. And on East Avenue there in Rochester, they're just lining on each side of the street, and all these different styles, one after another. And I'm guessing there was a lot of money. Got a motorcycle going by. You don't get that in Rochester. I'm guessing there was a lot of money. It's always a motorcycle. I'm guessing there was a lot of money in Rochester, you know, in the Industrial Revolution. And the mills and the factories and all of that, somebody owned them. And, you know, but anyway, it was really, I just wanted to point that out. It was way nicer than I ever thought. The drives were ridiculous between a lot of the gigs, where we'd have to drive 6 hours during the day and then play a gig. And sometimes the traffic would get really bad and the 6-hour drive turned into 8 hours. That was that way between, I don't remember, maybe it was Philly and Boston. I can't remember where it was. Doesn't seem like it was that much. Anyway, we had some really bad drives, and it was really difficult to make videos of anything. And when I played in Boston, if those of you who live in Boston who actually drive cars, man, my you know, my heart goes out to you. You guys are tougher than I am. That is a rough place to drive. I can't imagine doing it every day. It's a good thing to have public transportation. I would be using that. I did not enjoy driving in Boston. But after the Boston gig, the next morning we went to Lowell, Massachusetts, and I visited Jack Kerouac's grave. That's the third time that I've been there, and the first time was probably 20 years ago when I went to Nova Scotia with my buddy Chris, who's no longer with us, and on the way back we stopped off, and I mentioned that in a song called Something More. At the live shows, people always request that one, but I remember the fog of Massachusetts on the morning we stood on Kerouac's grave. Some of you know that song, you know what I'm talking about, but I'd been back once probably 2 years ago and visited Kerouac's grave by myself. It was nice to go there with my buddy Todd and filmed a little something. I'm not really sure what to do with it. I didn't talk or anything, but I might, you know, throw it. I might do something with it. Might just share it with my Patreon people. But we went and had breakfast at a place called the Owl Cafe, and man, I mean, it was like absolutely shortlist one of the best breakfasts I've had in years. It was absolutely great. And it was an old diner, like the trolley car looking diners, you know, the rail cars, or what, you know, that kind of diner which you see in the Northeast. It was freaking great, man. There was a waitress, was a lady named Beverly who was amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing, and was just super nice to us. And she wasn't sassy, you know, she was confident and talked to us like we were real people, but she was on top of everything. And, you know, it was just an amazing thing to like, oh my God, this is what great service is like. And the food was great. The experience was great. You guys should Google that, the Owl Diner, I think. It seemed like it was called Three Sisters Owl Diner or something like that, but OWL Diner. Google that. There were a few different diners in Lowell that all looked great. We just happened to choose that one, and I'm really, really glad we did. It wasn't touristy, even though it looked like very retro. You know, it's just old. I always say about myself, I'm not retro, I'm just old. You know, and the diner was that way. It was working class. The people in there were people, it was a very broad mix of people from different backgrounds. There were people that looked like their ancestors came from, you know, a lot of different parts of the world, and they were all working class and real. There was nothing hip about it at all, and it was very, very refreshing. I just wanted to point that out. If you're ever in Lowell, go to the Owl Diner. I hope it lives up to it for you guys the way it lived up to it for me and Todd. But we went on the next day. Where were we? The next day we went to, I can't remember where the hell it was. I'll think of it. It was Portsmouth. We went to Portsmouth. We had another experience. On the Owl Diner, the two of us ate, and it was like $18 for the bill. It was, you know, cheap. It was what breakfast used to cost. And that could have cost a lot more, but it didn't. The next day, we got a $35 breakfast at a place that was all hip and trendy. It sucked. The waiter was just too damn cool to give a damn about us, and it was quite the contrast. And we're like, wow, okay. So anyway, and I'm not gonna like mention their name or whatever, because that doesn't matter, but it was a bad experience, and it made me appreciate the day before even more. When you travel, you get a lot of different experiences, and we're always really overly nice to everybody, you know, because everybody's working, you know, and everybody's trying to do the best they can. Even if they're having a bad day, they may not always be that way. So I always try to, you know, please and thank you, but this cat didn't want any of it. But played a beautiful theater in Portsmouth as the music hall. Absolutely beautiful. Just if you see the pictures, I posted some photos like on Instagram, I think, of the theater. Just absolutely beautiful. We recorded me playing a song at Soundcheck that I uploaded for Patreon people, just to give you an idea of the place. And I might publish that on the main feed one of these days. But man, so many things that we did. There's too many. They all run together. We drove through rural New York, like through the back roads, like upstate, just all of the little towns. And, you know, like I've said before, I'm obsessed with checking real estate listings across the country. There's some great ones in New York, and I always wonder why people don't, you know, leave New York City just to go out a little farther into some of these small towns and start inhabiting those for way cheaper. And I saw one particular, we were in, I don't know how you pronounce it, we'll say Lisle or Lizzle. Lisle, New York, and there was an old church that was beautiful, just really beautiful old church. And we stopped off, and Todd Fox, my buddy, took my picture in front of it, and I shared it on the Instagrams. Beautiful. And then I looked up just trying to learn a little more about that town, and I found the real estate listing for a few years ago for that church. And the asking price, I mean, they had pictures of the inside, had all the original woodwork. I mean, it was gorgeous inside. It was gorgeous outside, but it was built in the 1860s or 70s. I can't remember exactly when, but the asking price was $97,500. And just thinking, you know, what the hell, man? Why aren't we all living in some small town like that and getting cheap houses and having my dream of starting an alt-country retirement community can all be there. We can just all be the town weirdos and sit on the porch and talk like this at night. Why aren't we doing that? You know, why aren't you doing that? Why ain't I doing that? One of these days. But Todd and I talked about that for miles, like for multiple days, just kept talking about that church and little towns like that. So many beautiful things that you see when you're traveling. We did laundry in Lowell too. That was pretty fun. Laundry day. It happens, sooner or later it happens when you're on the road. And what else? Man, I'm going to lose track of all the places. You know, they run together in good ways and bad ways. There's this thing about when I'm on the road. I talk about this from time to time. Maybe you guys can remember that vacation that you took. You had a really good vacation where you visited some city you'd never been to, and you like hit the museums, you know, and you like visited the strange parts of town, just saw a lot of things. I talk about this a lot. It's like when you're on tour, you cram so many things into each day. So many things happen. You meet so many people. These experiences, these distance traveled, these little things that you stop off and notice at a gas station, that something that happened the day before yesterday feels like it happened, you know, like a month ago, but it was just, you know, 48 hours ago or so. And it feels like you're really living. And I often wonder how do you cram that much life, you know, into life when you're at home? And I've thought about that for like 30 years. You know, how do I make my life? How do I do enough interesting things that I care about and fun things? How do I do enough of that to where it feels like, you know, that same feeling when I'm on the road or whatever? And I don't know the answer to that. I try really hard to cram a lot of life in, you know. Maybe you guys have figured that out. Maybe you can tell me, you know, tell me down below how you do it. But did any of you guys see any of the shows? Did you dig it? I sold a lot of stuff, man. People were very generous and happy to buy things, and they, I mean, I just pretty much ran out of stuff by the last gig, and that was great. I can't complain at all. You know, I remember the first time I met Todd Snider was back in the 90s. He played the patio in Indianapolis, and I opened up for him. I didn't really know much about him then. I knew that he was getting a name for himself, and All Right Guy, I think, had just come out. And I remember he asked me at sound check if I had I think it was like a G harmonica, and I said, yeah, could I borrow it? He borrowed my harmonica off of me, and he played it during the set, and then afterwards he would give it back, and I'm like, just go ahead and keep it, man, it's cool. And oh, thanks. That's my first memory. And I sold over 100 CDs that night. And I was thinking, good Lord, man, this is a pretty good pairing, you know, what the hell? And then about a year later, I opened for him at the Vogue in Indianapolis, much bigger crowd. I sold way over 100 CDs that night. And I was just kind of thinking, man, that's it's not all about what you sell, but sometimes that's a pretty good barometer to how well their audience cares about you, how well it matches up. And the audiences for this tour really seem to still dig it. It was really, really nice, and it's nice to get to do it. Hope to get to do it again sometime soon. If I don't, whatever, man. That's cool. I got to do it this time. And but if you guys saw any of the gigs, tell me about it. I could go on forever. Here comes a big truck. There's always a big truck. All right. I'm gonna like point to that video, like right here. Let's hope I can put it there, of Todd Snider sitting on my couch, tripping balls, talking about how much he loved John Prine. And I will see you guys down the road. Much love to you.